3 sinister tales from isolated lighthouses that will haunt you. The open sea has always been a terrifying place for sailors. Storms, shipwrecks, and of course, the loneliness that comes with being so far away from civilization have made many a sailor fear the ocean's wrath. But there is one other thing that haunts the minds of those who sail the seas: lighthouses. For some reason, these towers built to save lives seem to attract ghosts, cursed objects, and terrifying creatures alike. Join me today as we explore 3 sinister tales from isolated lighthouses that will haunt you forever. Our first story today takes us to the lonely Scottish island of May. This island was once home to a lighthouse that was tended by a man named Thomas Surtees. He and his family moved out to the remote island in 1898 and quickly got to work making sure the light shone bright for any ships passing by. However, this job came with a dark caveat. If the light were to go out, or if it were obscured by the thick fog that often rolls in around the island, then it could be disastrous. That's because the lighthouse was constructed over an underwater cave, and should the light fail while the cave was full of mist, then any ships approaching would have no way of knowing it was there. It would be like trying to navigate a path through a thick fog with a massive rock monolith hidden just below the surface, and many ships met their doom that way. After working tirelessly for months, Thomas was beginning to feel the isolation of the island, but he pushed through for the sake of the many ships at sea. Then one night, while tending to the lamp, disaster struck. The lantern room caught fire, and Thomas only had seconds to escape. He ran to the door, pulled it open, and dove down the spiral staircase. The heat from the fire quickly caused the stairs to collapse, sealing Thomas's fate. His wife and children escaped unharmed, but they would never forget the sound of Thomas's screams as he fell to his death. Decades later, people still report hearing his screams on windy nights. And sometimes they even see the ghost of Thomas desperately racing around the lighthouse, unable to escape the flames that took his life. For our next story, we can stay in Scotland and visit the Isle of May again, but we're going to travel back in time a bit. In 1637, a man named John became the keeper of the Isle of May lighthouse. But his time at the lighthouse began like most of the best horror stories do, with a storm. The winds were unlike anything he'd seen before, and the waves crashed against the rocks with deafening roars. But as the storm raged on, something strange happened. The wind began to calm down, and the waves slowly receded. And when the sun rose the next morning, the island was completely dry. None of this made any sense to John, because according to his calculations, they were right in the middle of a violent storm. Not to mention the middle of the North Sea. So how could they possibly be out of the water? He soon discovered the answer when he went up to the top of the lighthouse and saw what was left of the island. A new stretch of land now connected the island to the mainland, forming a road about 200 yards wide. This meant that during the night, he and the 3 other men staying in the lighthouse had literally been on an island in the middle of nowhere. But after the storm passed, it became part of the mainland once again. What could have caused this sudden change in the landscape? Even more disturbing, where had the men been during all of this? Some believe this may have been a trick played by the legendary Scottish goddess of the sea, the mysterious and often terrifying deity known as Ran. While she does have a reputation for wrecking ships and drowning men, she is also known for her love of riddles and word games. And it's possible that this was simply a game to her, but others disagree. They say that this is proof of a horrifying phenomenon known as the May Island Curse. According to legend, anyone who stays overnight on the island will be killed or taken by the mythical creatures known as the Merrows, who live in the waters around Scotland. These creatures have the ability to shapeshift, usually into the form of a seal, and lure unsuspecting humans onto the island with them. For our final story, we need only travel across the pond to the United States and the small town of Two Lights State Park, located near Portland, Oregon. Just off the coast from the park is a small, uninhabited island, and on it stands the ruins of a lighthouse that was destroyed in the 19th century. It had quite the turbulent history. Originally built in 1859, the lighthouse was the first brick tower ever built on the West Coast. It was originally manned by a man named William T. New, and he and his family moved into the lighthouse and set to work. However, things didn't go well. After the first year, New complained bitterly about the construction of the building and its poor quality. Just 2 years after it was built, a storm blew the roof off the lighthouse. When it was rebuilt, the second keeper of the light, a man named James M. Gillis, died after falling down a flight of stairs. Not long after, another keeper, Eugene F. McLean, died of a heart attack. And in 1892, the lighthouse was severely damaged by an earthquake. Eventually, it was abandoned and left to fall into disrepair. Today, it is haunted by all the keepers who lost their lives there. Visitors report hearing the sounds of footsteps, voices, and even the occasional scream echoing throughout the ruins. And sometimes they even catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure walking along the edge of the island. There are even reports of disembodied whispers telling visitors to leave the island right before a large wave crashes against the rocks below. No matter which way you look at it, this lighthouse seems to be a magnet for death and tragedy. But what about you? Do you know of any other haunted lighthouses? Or do you have any scary stories of your own to tell? I know I certainly do. Let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to check back soon for more terrifying tales.